I'm Nate the Effing Great, and what did I just watch? Guys, I cannot begin to tell you the emotions that I'm going through right now after this weekend. It has honestly been one of the best weekends that I have ever experienced, and it made me proud to be a wrestling fan. From the meet and greets to wrestlers, to all the greetings that I had with fans like myself, to even podcasters, I enjoyed every single bit of this weekend. And it all culminated on this night. All in. And it was everything that everybody could have expected, if not a bit more, in my opinion. But let's go through the card and I'll explain why. So, unfortunately, I did not get a chance to see one of the opening matches on the pre-show, where we saw SoCal Uncensored defeating the Briscoe Brothers, but I can very positively believe that it was a great matchup between those two teams. I did get a chance to watch the 15-man over-the-budget Battle Royal, and this was a really good way to start off the night. You had 15 guys battling against each other, and the winner would go on to face Jay Lethal for the ROH World Championship. And it was very well done. There was a lot of high-flying spots, a lot of hardcore spots. It featured people like from the past, like, Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray, I should say, Tommy Dreamer, Billy Gunn, also some of the new stars that have been hitting the scenes, guys like Cheeseburger, Moose, a lot of people who have definitely made impact in the end. We saw Flip Gordon make a surprise appearance, and he won the Battle Royal after all the adversity that he went through, and basically Cody's trying to get him not to be on the show. He wins this Battle Royal, and he gets the opportunity to face Jay Lethal for the ROH World Championship. So we go on to the main card. First matchup we have Matt Cross defeated MJF in what was a really good opener. Matt Cross is a high-flying guy who definitely really did a great job. MJF, a lot of people saw him roaming around StarCast. Really good heel. Definitely one of those guys who almost seems to be just one of those guys you just love to hate. Absolutely wonderful. Matt Cross would defeat him with the Shooting Star Press. Very beautiful. Almost as beautiful as a Matt Sydal one, but I don't want to push my luck with that. There's some other things that I will definitely push my luck in when it comes to this, but yeah, it was a really good opener. Next matchup on the card, we had Stephen Amell from the Arrow taking on Christopher Daniels. This was one of those matches I was very worried about because of the fact that Christopher Daniels has all this experience, and Stephen Amell, this is his third match, I believe, and he's had some really good moments, but it wasn't one of those things where I was thinking that he was going to wow the audience, and no, I was very surprised with how much he was able to take chops. The ruthless, aggressive attitude that he had towards Daniels was absolutely amazing. He took a very good table spot where Daniels was on it, and then he did an elbow drop towards Daniels. Daniels got out of the way. He went through the table. In the end, Christopher Daniels would defeat Stephen Amell with the BME. It was a better matchup than I originally hoped it would be, and I'm very pleased to say that I was not at all disappointed with it. I thought it was going to be a bit of a gimmicky matchup, but they did a great job. In all honesty, kudos to Stephen Amell for going from the acting world to the wrestling world. It's definitely a lot different, but he is starting to slowly become a really good asset to the company, and he is definitely turning into a star in and of himself. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else the future holds for Stephen Amell. So we have the only women's matchup on here in this next match, and it's a four corners matchup, a fatal four-way matchup, which features Chelsea Green, Britt Baker, Madison Rayne, and Tessa Blanchard. These four women laid it all on the line, and it is absolutely amazing how they just performed. I know how good Madison Rayne is from a lot of her showings in Impact. She definitely did not disappoint in this matchup. Britt Baker, I'd had really no knowledge about, but I am so glad that I got the chance to see her and see how she operates in the ring, because she does an absolutely amazing job. Chelsea Green, a lot of people know her as Laurel Van Ness, and she almost had this kind of two-faced deal. She's known as the hot mess, which is honestly something that I would think that women would consider to be an insult, but she took something that could be considered an insult and made it something amazing. She had like a nice clean face on one side. The other side, there was like all makeup smeared up and eyeliner, stuff like that, all crazed looked. And there are moments during the deal where she's, debating, and she's just debating on whether to do the right thing or to do it a different way. She was doing a lot of screams. She was just doing a lot of really good wrestling. Absolutely wonderful. And then there's Tessa Blanchard, who has definitely taken the wrestling world by storm and has really impressed a lot of people in the last year, I would say. The ending was a little bit confusing, but the match itself was still really good. Chelsea Green was able to hit a Canadian Destroyer. I will not call it other than that. I know a lot of people call it the Flip Pile Driver or just the Destroyer, but I will always call it the Canadian Destroyer because Petey Williams is the innovator of it, and he does it absolutely amazing. But then Tessa Blanchard would get in the ring, and she would hit the Hammerlock DDT on Chelsea for the 3 count, or what appeared to be a 3 count. Well, it turned out to be a 3 count, even though a lot of people thought it was just a 2. It looked like either Britt or Madison broke up the pin, but yeah, it was still one of those things that was, it was a great matchup, even if it was a little bit wonky at the end. It was still an enjoyable matchup, and these 4 women have nothing to be ashamed of. But one thing I will say as a side note, because I was actually at a viewing party instead of the actual All-In event, so I'm glad I got that, because I think I had more of a chance to interact with some of the fans that did not get a chance to do it and get their ideas on it. But also I got the chance to meet a couple of the wrestlers that were at the StarCast event, and one of them was former TNA Knockout, as well as one of the best women's wrestlers of all time, Gail Kim. And I remember her being very upset with the finish of the women's match, mainly because Chelsea Green hit the flip pile driver. I think it was on Britt Baker, if I'm not mistaken. And Britt was able to kick out, and she was not at all happy about that, because she does make the argument that if somebody has that move slated as their finisher, if they're in another company, that doesn't matter, it should still be a finisher, which I 100% agree with. There have been a lot of times where people have used others' finishers, and they're so inconsistent about it, because a lot of people use them as setups to finishers, or people are just going to end up kicking out of these finishers. I know another main example that has angered a lot of one wrestler in particular, Stone Cold Steve Austin, is when people use the stunner and people kick out of that, because it was one of the most lethal finishers in the 90s, and it should not have been watered down like that. So if they're going to try to do like a false setup, they really should consider what moves they should be using. Otherwise, they are going to upset a lot of people. And by a lot of people, I mean people you definitely do not want to piss off. Whether they're legends or hardworking women and men in the ring, just don't piss them off, is what I'm saying. We go into the next matchup, which is for the NWA World's Championship. Nick Aldis defended against Cody Rhodes, in what was a very well told story and a very well delivered matchup. Because this was mainly Cody Rhodes working to try and win the title that his father won, and a title that he as a kid would love to have had. And it's just an absolutely amazing story here. We see Cody and Nick Aldis. I will refer to him as Magnus probably until the day I die. They laid it all on the line with these two. We saw a lot of familiar moves that Magnus would break out. We see a lot of moves that Cody Rhodes has done. Cody actually hit the crossroads, and Magnus was able to just kick out. Magnus was going to go for the diving elbow, but Brandy Rhodes got in the way, so she took the brunt of it. And in the end, we would see Cody Rhodes reverse a sunset flip attempt, and it was basically like British Bulldog versus Bret Hart. He reversed it and got the 3 count, and he is the new NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. Honestly, it took all of my energy to not openly weep, because I didn't want everybody to think that I was just this giant baby, but I really would have loved to have cried, because this was a wonderful moment, and why this was not the closing of the show, I'll never understand. But this was a really good matchup, and honestly, there is not that bad of a matchup on this show. It's absolutely amazing how well they continue their storytellings with stuff that they have on the independent scenes, as well as incorporate that and make it better on this big stage of All In. And this was a prime example of that, where Cody was fighting to win the world title, and he was willing to put up everything on the line, including his actual ring of honor. So to see that moment where Cody Rhodes is holding the belt and he has everybody in the ring, it's a really cool deal. I mean, also to see a legend like Jeff Jarrett and Tommy Dreamer just there to celebrate that moment with him really made it even more special. Also, a little highlight from here: DDP was checking on Cody because Cody looked like he was kind of out of it, and Earl Hebner did the whole X thing. Then out comes Sean Daivari. He just pushes DDP, gets in the ring, and yells at the referee. Then DDP hits a diamond cutter. It was beautiful. And to the guy that keeps saying, no, it's the Randy Orton cutter, it's the RKO because he made it better. No, he didn't. DDP made that move amazing before there was the hashtag RKO out of nowhere. I'm sorry, but I'm just spewing facts. We had a Chicago street fight as the next matchup, in which Hangman Page took on Joey Janela, and we had Penelope Ford in his corner. If ever there was a rivalry or a match that could possibly even come close to Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano's wars in the last 3 NXT takeovers, this would be one of them. This was a huge spot fest. There were tables that were wrecked all around the ring. Some points I honestly thought that they were just absolutely destroyed. There was one point where Joey did a diving elbow drop to Hangman Page through a table, and it kind of looked like one of the legs of the table hit Page in the head. There's another spot where Page did powerbomb to Joey through a couple of tables, and it looked like a very scary bump. So that was just absolutely insane. But in the end, we see Mr. Hangman Page hit a reverse tombstone piledriver. Something Justice, I can't remember exactly what the name of the finisher was, but he hits that on Joey, and it is one of the most scariest spots I've ever seen, because he's doing this off a ladder, and that is like a 15-foot drops. So for him to basically take someone and be like, okay, we're going down, and the guy probably can't even see what's going on, is a very scary deal. And the impact looked very, very scary. It was one of those spots where I'm thinking, this is unnecessary. I understand that they were trying to make this matchup really, really good and have a huge ending, but it was just one of those things where it was just way too scary for even me. But yeah, this would allow Hangman Page to pick up the victory. And then we have almost like an Undertaker WrestleMania 20 deal, because there's a story about Hangman Page murdering Joey Ryan. So, instead of druids, out come these people that are dressed like penises. You heard me right. They were all dressed as penises. And out comes Joey Ryan. He's back from the dead. He's totally fine. And then he would just beat down Hangman Page until they carried the penises carried him off. And then there was also a commentator who used the term res erection. This was one of those moments where I'm laughing, and I think I'm so entertained that I was like, I'm done. I'm done with a lot of this, but it was still so much more entertaining than when Brodus Clay had all those quote-unquote grandmothers on the stage, and they're shaking their butts around. They're doing that thing at WrestleMania 28. It was just one of those things where it's like, oh boy, this is why I do not like wrestling. But this is one of those prime examples of the phrase that I like to use, which is wrestling is weird, and yet we somehow still love it. I know this was one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen. Penises carrying a guy to the back. But at the same time, I kind of loved it because it was at least something different than what we're used to. So, yeah. I mean, honestly, this was another really good matchup, and it was very brutal. I'm going to be surprised if Joey Janela can even walk after tonight. We go into the ROH World Championship matchup in which Jay Lethal takes on Flip Gordon. Now, there's an interesting story that's basically being told here, and that is Jay Lethal basically gets a pat on the shoulder, he's given sunglasses, and he comes out to the Macho Man theme, and just, oh my gosh, this was beautiful. He came out looking like Black Machismo, he's doing the Macho Man thing. It's just a lot of fun, very entertaining matchup. They made this serious matchup into half serious and half entertaining, which was totally fine by me. Anytime that Jay Lethal would get a pat on the shoulder, he would revert back to either himself or back to Black Machismo. I was not expecting Black Machismo to make an appearance at all. He would go on to hit like the 3 legendary elbow drops on Flip Gordon for a near 2 count, but in the end, we would see Jay Lethal retain via a lethal injection and retain the world title against Flip Gordon. It was a really good matchup, like I said. After the match took place, Bully Ray came out, started beating down on Flip Gordon as well as Jay Lethal. Then out comes Colt Cabana. They get a table. They even do the... No, that was during the Battle Royal. I was thinking that they did the whole Was Up deal where they spread... Where the Dudley Boys would usually spread legs of their opponent and then just have one of them do a headbutt to their crotch. No, that was earlier in the Battle Royal, and that happened to Bully Ray, courtesy of Colt Cabana. So, during this deal, we see Bully Ray get picked up by Gordon and Jay Lethal and put on Colt Cabana's shoulders, and they would do a Shield triple powerbomb to Bully Ray through a table. It was a pretty awesome moment, and I'm very glad that it happened. Next up, we have Kenny Omega taking on Pentagon Dark, which in my opinion was match of the night. This was a really good storytelling between these two, where Pentagon was doing everything that he could to just wreck Omega, and Omega was just doing everything to almost try and pop Pentagon's head off. It was just really good, and the storytelling that the announcers did was absolutely perfect. In the end, we would see Kenny Omega hit the one-winged angel for the victory. Then the lights went out, and they went out a little bit longer than expected. But I guess I understand why after I mentioned what happened after. After like what felt like maybe a minute or two of lights being out, lights come back on. Pentagon just gets up like he's no selling. He beats down on Kenny Omega, and then the mask comes off, and it's Chris Jericho. He's basically beating down Kenny Omega, just decimating him. And then Jericho gets a microphone, and he says, "Hey Kenny, I'll see you on the Jericho Cruise." So basically laying out a challenge for him and Kenny Omega to happen on the cruise, which I'm sure will be an absolutely amazing event. Definitely one of those things that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was really good. Probably what would be the fans' favorite matchup, in my opinion, would be this next matchup, which was Marty Scurll taking on Okada. Basically, the story here is that Marty wants to get out of the junior heavyweight division. He wants to prove that he can be a great wrestler like Kenny Omega and like Okada and like Cody Rhodes. But basically, he has to prove himself against Okada to make that statement even valid. So this matchup came about, and there was a lot of spots during this deal where it was mainly Okada utilizing his strength and his height to really take control of the matchup. But Marty Scurll put on one hell of a fight. And there's no doubt in my mind that he is definitely going to be looked at and be realized he can do more than just be in the junior heavyweight division. I think we should put him in the higher-ups, whether he maybe fights for the United States title, the IC title. I mean, Marty Scurll versus Chris Jericho. Tell me you do not want to see that. Because I sure as hell do want to see that. Or Kenny Omega versus Marty Scurll, or whoever Kenny would eventually lose it to. But we're still deep in the reign of Kenny, so I'm not too worried about him losing the belt. In the end, we have the main event matchup, which I was kind of disappointed as this was a closer, but it was still a really good matchup. Really good spot fest in which we saw Golden Elite, Young Bucks, and Kota Ibushi taking on Rey Mysterio, Phoenix, and Bandito. Like I said, major spot fest, a lot of high-flying stuff. They did a lot of their finishers early on, which kind of surprised me. But in the end, we would see the Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi pick up the victory. And then after that, I think it was like maybe 2 or 3, it may have felt like maybe a minute after they showed, hey, they won, the Fight TV network deal just shuts off. And it's like, well, okay. I kind of want to know what happened after, but I guess I'll have to look into the What Culture deal here to figure out what happened after I went off the air. So normally I do this deal where I grade the matches and tell you what like a final score. I'm just going to do a final score on this, and that is giving this a solid A+ show. Even though there's some points during the matches that are either kind of botchy, some finishes are kind of sloppy, it was still a very wonderfully entertaining night. No doubts about it. I don't care what a lot of critics say, including Dave Meltzer, because just, do I really need a reason? Do I need a reason to hate Dave Meltzer? Or just not listen to him? Really? I don't think so. But it was an absolutely amazing matchup, and like I said, it's all thanks to people like Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks who really understand that there's something missing in wrestling today, and there has to be something that can, cure that. That can cure that feeling of missing something. And they did an absolutely amazing job tonight. It felt like a mega show for New Japan, and I was totally okay with that. Like I said, great matches, including Okada and Marty Scurll, Pentagon and Kenny Omega. The ROH title match was amazing. I loved the women's title match. Everything about the show from top to bottom is absolutely wonderful. So definitely go check it out. And I will say this in closing, I have so many different stories that I could tell as far as StarCast goes, but I'm not going to relay them here. I'm probably going to either wait on a future podcast, or maybe I'll just save them for conversations that I have with people who listen. I don't know. I'm still kind of debating on that. I mean, there's some people I definitely kind of mention what happened, but everybody else that wants to know, they can either, come ask me or just, let me know in person. But I will say this, that every single person that I got the chance to meet has made a memorable impact on me. And all the wrestlers were very amazing. They were very professional, very warm-hearted, very open-minded, just really wonderful. And it just keeps getting better from there. So definitely, if you get a chance, go see StarCast, go to a wrestling convention, get a chance to learn from these people. If you're an interviewer, you'll learn what questions to ask and what questions not to ask. If you're a fan, you'll know how far is too far, really, when it comes to anything. And I do mean anything. So, with that being said, I am completely exhausted, but I really wanted to do this review episode for you guys. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. You know how to follow me. You know how to give us a like on Facebook. And with that being said, I'm Nate the Effing Great. This has been the All In Review, and it's been a wonderful time. So have a good one, guys, and I will be back sometime tomorrow. I got one more person that I gotta meet. And great. Haha. Have a good one, guys. Bye.